Jesus Christ with dark skin. Stained glass window shows Jesus Christ with dark skin, stirring questions about race in New England. Hello, welcome to the English Language Learning Podcast. You can find the Leitura, the reading, in the descrição no canal de YouTube. Here we go. This is from APNEWS.com by Mark Pratt. Stained glass window shows Jesus Christ with dark skin, stirring questions about race in New England. New England would be the area of Boston. Not just Boston, but the area in the upper northeast of the United States. A nearly 150-year-old stained glass church window that depicts a dark-skinned Jesus Christ interacting with women in New Testament scenes has stirred up questions about race, Rhode Island's role in the slave trade, and the place of women in 19th century New England society. The window installed at the long-closed St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Warren, that's a city, in 1878, is the oldest known public example of stained glass on which Christ is depicted as a person of color that one expert has seen. This window is unique and highly unusual, said Virginia Regine, a professor of humanities emerita at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts, and an expert on the history of stained glass art. It's a very niche. I have never seen this iconography for that time. The skin tones were nothing like the white Christ you usually see, said Arnold, who teaches architectural design in California after growing up in Rhode Island and earning an art history degree from Harvard University. That is all I will read from the text. Again, você pode encontrar a leitura na descrição no canal de YouTube. Other details from the story, again, I will not read anymore, but some more details. There was confirmation that the paint is in fact black and brown, intentionally, com pretensão. This wasn't because of time and degradation and changing of paint colors. No, the actual paint used for Jesus in this church is black and brown paint. So that was one detail. Here's a comment from the former executive director of the Rhode Island Black Heritage Society. To me, being of African American and Native American heritage, I think that it could represent both people. Anything else? Yeah, there's a comment and there's some significance to the timing, right? The timing of this particular stained glass window in this church. At that point in American history, there was a presidential election, one of the most controversial in American history, more than Donald Trump. The presidential election was a tie. There was no winner. And so the two parties had to negotiate how to decide who will win, who will be the president. Let's remember the groups. There's the Republican Party, and the Republican Party was the party of Abraham Lincoln, the party that ran to end the Civil War, to unite the country, and eventually to abolish slavery. And Lincoln had a particular plan for reconstructing the rebel South. So this is in 1876. It's been about 10 years since the end of the Civil War. The United States military is in the South. Black people are being elected by black people for office in South Carolina, in the South. Black people who used to be slaves, minutes, hours, days, months before, they are actually experiencing, hey, we can vote, and we can vote for ourselves. in our own communities. So immediately after the Civil War, in the this kind of time period, it kind of ends right now, 1876, 1876. Black people had some civic success in experiencing what democracy could be like and should be like. Unfortunately, that all changes in this year, 1876. Why did it change? The next year, 1877. 1877. It changed because the two parties, the Republicans and the Democrats were a party of the South, the party of the Confederate Rebellion, the party of slave ownership. They made a deal that, hey, we will permit, we will allow the Republican candidate to be the next president, to win the election. But what is the price? The price is the Reconstruction period with military intervention in the South must stop. It's over. Let the South and the Southern states do what they want, minus slave ownership, because that was already decided. But let them kind of dominate their own society and communities. Get the North and Northern politics out of the South, and essentially let racism be codified into law, anything except slavery. So that was the deal with the devil. That was the deal that Republicans made with Southern Democrats. And this would eventually lead to the Black Codes. I'm not just saying Black Codes because it's about black people. This is the actual name that historians have given. The Black Codes that didn't let black people enjoy freedom. And then eventually, some 20, 30 years later, the Jim Crow laws about discrimination, about segregation. So, coming up next, all things English, vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, in the next segment. Stained glass window shows Jesus Christ with dark skin, stirring questions about race in New England. Excuse me. That was the title. That was the headline that we read. Você pode encontrar a leitura, the reading, na descrição, no canal de YouTube, para todos os vídeos. Now we will look at the English before we have questions and conversation. Stained glass window. What the hell is that? It's a particular type of window, a colorful, painted window that you can usually find in the Catholic Church. I believe in Portuguese it is vitral. In the headline, stirring questions, to stir questions. S-T-I-R, questions. That's the infinitive. To stir questions is to create or instigate or provoke questions or thoughts or doubts or interesting conversation, really. Doesn't just necessarily have to be questions, but it could be conversation too. So, agitar perguntas, provocar, instigar, agitar perguntas e conversa e discussão. A nearly 150-year-old painting. Nearly. This is the first sentence that I read in the Leitura. A nearly 150-year-old stained glass window that depicts or that shows a dark-skinned Jesus Christ. Nearly means approximately, mais ou menos. Mais ou menos uma obra, pintura de 150 anos. A role, New England's role in the slave trade. This is in the first paragraph. Excuse me. Rhode Island's role, R-O-L-E, in the slave trade and the place of women in 19th century New England society. Role is papel, right? people have roles in a company. What is your role in your company? What is your role on your team? What is Brad Pitt's role in the movie? Papel. Any other doubts here? I didn't have any other doubts that I wrote down. Maybe you have some. Leave a comment. Communicate with me through email. What are your doubts? Things that I'm missing. I usually don't do much grammar, so you can tell me if there's any particular grammar topic that's difficult for you. But coming up next, questions and conversation about race, about what the hell does Jesus look like, or did he look like? Both. What does he look like now? Most people in Brazil and the United States have seen a picture of Jesus. What does he look like in Brazil? Does he look the same in the United States? Does he look the same in the United Kingdom? Does he look the same in Africa? What does Jesus look like? And what did he probably look like? Coming up in the next segment. Stained glass window shows Jesus Christ with dark skin, stirring questions about race in New England. Stirring questions, agitando perguntas, discussões sobre raça in New England. That was the headline that we read. We talked about the English. Now we have questions and conversation about the topic of race, of images and imagery and pictures of Jesus. So let me start with, in Brazilian churches, evangelical, Pentecostal, Catholic, what does Jesus usually look like? In Brazilian churches, what does Jesus usually look like? When you think of Jesus, what does he look like in your brain? Nas igrejas brasileiras, como eles mostram Jesus? Qual tipo de aparência ele tem? Qual pele? Is Jesus white? Is Jesus brown? What does he look like in church? What do you think Jesus looked like probably? And this is about you, not about your church, not about what pictures you have seen. Excuse my bad present perfect. What do you think Jesus looked like probably? Obviously, you don't know. It'd be very strange if you did know, but o que você acha? It's a little bit different in Portuguese, right? Como você acha foi a aparência de Jesus? Provavelmente. O que tipo de pele você acha ele tive? I don't think tive is right there. Why do you think there is contention and discussion about Jesus' appearance? Por que você acha que tem contenção e discussão sobre a aparência do Jesus? Why do you think there is contention about Jesus' appearance? I have some ideas, and I can't answer for Brazil, but in the United States, Jesus is associated with white skin. Why is that? Well, it depends where you are. If you are in the South, Christianity was used, the Bible was used as a tool to reinforce slavery, to make black people subservient. They used the Bible. It wasn't just a coincidence that all of the slave owners proclaimed to be Christians and that they were saving, right? People thought they said, I don't think they actually believed this. They said with rhetoric that they were saving black people from being animals, right? Going to hell and damnation for not having salvation, right? This was used with Native Americans too. It's part of this article. What does the image of Jesus show? Is it black and brown because of the time of slavery? Is it black and brown because of the Native Americans? Who made it? Who physically made the window? Were they Native American? Were they black and brown? Were they white? If they were white, why did they paint a black and brown Jesus? So that's some of the topics, right? Why is Jesus shown as white? And I promise you, in the United States, Jesus is white. He is. Oh, and people will fight you about this verbally. They will have arguments about Jesus is white. And if tomorrow people woke up to all of the images of Jesus turning brown, there would be a big problem in those churches. And the answer is obvious. If you live in Brazil, I guess the same, but racism. It's the legacy of racism in the United States, in the colonial world, right? That's a huge part of the legacy of colonialism. Racism, not just racism, in civic life, but racism in religion. If you've ever read anything about Malcolm X, you might have learned or read about what he thought was the role or papel de cristianidade, cristão, in the escravidão dos negros. He recognized that, look, Jesus is a white religion. Christianity is a white religion. Why? Because that's what they're using or used to create the world of black people are property and white people are saving the black people through slavery, which is an insane thing to think, or at least to argue, even insaner to believe, but it's an insane thing to argue that. Para discutir que tá salvando o negro por escravidão. I mean, it's very insane to even say those words, but that's what people believed, or at least argued. Let's see. Why do you think anyone would believe Jesus had light, white skin when he was from a region of black-haired, dark-skinned people? Why do you think that? Por que você acha que qualquer pessoa acreditaria que o Jesus tive pele branco ou claro quando ele nasceu numa região com pessoas com cabelo preto, com pele escuro? Por quê? I guess that's kind of the same question as the last one, right? Why do you think there is any belief that Jesus had white skin? Where does that come from? Where do you think that comes from? Pure speculation. Why do you think there is a picture of a dark-skinned Jesus in a church from a time and place, the 1870s, New England, that did not recognize Jesus as dark-skinned? Especulação pura. Por que você acha que tem foto, pintura, vitral de Jesus com pele escuro em uma igreja, em templo, em lugar que não reconheceu o Jesus como uma pessoa que tive pele escuro? Por quê? Porque você acha? Why do you think? Do you think it was a black and brown worker who made the picture? Do you think it was someone making a statement? Do you think talvez eles estavam faltando outra tinta? Usou o que tive. Why do you think? Personally, what is your suspicion? What are your ideas? Have you ever seen any non-white representations of Jesus? Se você alguma vez já viu algumas representações ou pinturas do Jesus que não foram branco. I have, there on the internet, there is a picture, the first time I saw, primeira vez que eu vi, the first time I saw it was a few years ago of I think artificial intelligence generated picture of what Jesus might have looked like. Pode ter resemblado ou aparência que ele pode ter in realidade, né? And the picture is brown. He's got brown hair and he's got brown skin, and it looks like an Arab person. You know, that's it's not a crazy thing to imagine that Jesus was probably Arab. So, what about you? Have you ever seen any dark Jesuses? The plural of Jesus, Jesuses. Do you think any Western Muslims, os muçulmanos occidentais, do you think that any Western Muslims imagine that Muhammad was white? Why or why not? Now, I know in Islam, it's not allowed, it's not permitted to show pictures of Muhammad. So I'm not asking about pictures, but I'm asking about what you think they believe he looked like. When they think of Muhammad, what do you think they imagine? And so my question in Portuguese, você acha que tem alguns muçulmanos ocidentais que imagina o Muhammad fosse branco? Porque sim ou porque não? I've never heard the topic of Muhammad's skin color, but Muhammad is another Arab guy, prophet from the same, more or less, general region of the world as Jesus. Not exactly the same place, but I've never heard this racial conversation, this ethnic conversation about Muhammad. And Jesus is not, they were neighbors. So, but Islam is a religion that is, in the Western world, viewed as a brown religion. Brown people, Middle Eastern people, who we imagine as all being brown. I know that that's not true. But we imagine, you know, we don't have any reservations about or complaints or reclamações about brown Muslim figures, or particularly, you know, there's no debate about Muhammad was white or brown. We accept him as brown, just like we accept every Muslim probably is brown, even if that's not true. It's a brown religion in the Western mind. Are there any other historical figures that you can think of who have been whitewashed? Are there any other historical figures that you can think of who have been whitewashed? Se tem algumas figuras, personalidades históricas que você pode pensar que fossem, you know, virado branco. Are there any other people in history where there's this debate? Was he black or was he white? You know, when we think of Julio Kaiser, Julius Caesar, I mean, we don't talk about him being brown or white, or what kind of brown or how white. No, we don't talk about that. When we talk about, I forget, Genghis Khan. I know I just said that horribly. Genghis Khan, Genghis. We don't talk about him being Asian, dark-skinned or yellow-skinned or white-skinned or brown, slightly brown-skinned. There's not many. I can't think of any other person in history where there is we're just going to make him this color. We know he's from this area. We know people in that area are not this color, but we're going to make him this or her this color. Was Joan of Arc black? I've never seen a picture of her as black. Recently, here is one actually. Now that I'm, continuing just talking without end. Cleopatra. Cleopatra is there's a new Netflix documentary by Jada Pinkett Smith, who I don't really care for, but that's another topic. And she's black. And the topic here is, what was her ethnicity? Etnicidade, etnia. She was, as far as historians agree, she was probably Greek from the Ptolemaic dynasty after the death of Alexander the Great. She was probably Greek, and so Greek people at the time were not African brown skin, dark brown skin. They had a dark, maybe a brown complexion, but not dark brown that you might imagine from West or North Africa. And Egypt is in North Africa, correct? And an Egyptian may have been brown, but not in the same complexion as someone from the sub-Saharan region. So, yeah, this is a controversial Netflix news story. Maybe we'll do an episode on that as well. But that's the only one I can think of. What color is this person? Why are they being showed as black when they weren't black, African black? They were Greek, and they were maybe a little bit tan, but not brown. Even the Egyptians have been complaining and criticizing the Netflix documentary because of the color of the skin of the... It's a documentary, too. It's not a movie. This is not really a place for creative liberty. It's a documentary. So, final question. It's a tough one. What is the legacy of slavery in modern Brazil? What is the legacy of slavery in modern Brazil? And I need to look up the word legacy, actually. I think, not legado. Yeah, legado. O que é o legado da escravidão no Brasil moderna? In the world that you live in right now, in Brazil, where can you show me the legacies of slavery? And I might just give one example that Brazilians have already showed me. The periphery, right? Where are the neighborhoods that you describe as favelas, as ghettos, as places that don't have any connection and infrastructure to the state and to state institutions? The periphery. Why is that? Well, because black people were basically kicked out after the abolition of slavery and just exiled outside of the town. And they imported lots of European migrant workers to do the work instead. So, but what are the other legacies of slavery in modern Brazil? Where can you say, like, this is something that we're paying for today because of the things we did back then? In the United States, there's many, right? And there's a great article on APNEWS about what it means to have structural repercussions of racism and slavery. And I'm going to extend this just to racism, but all of that comes from colonialism and slavery. But why in the United States are black women more likely to die during childbirth? Why are black families less likely to get a loan from the bank to buy a house? Why are black people more likely to be pulled over and stopped by the police? Why are black people more likely to be killed by the police? Why are black people less likely to have property? And if you ever wanted any of the answers to any of those questions, type in the question on Google. It's not hard to find there's lots and lots of academia on these topics. And it all points to, it's because of racism and slavery. Why do I think this matters to Brazilians? The Christian religion is very big in Brazil. And the USA, Christianity, and in the USA, Christianity was a tool used by slave traders and slave owners and slave-friendly institutions to justify their participation in administration of enslaving Africans and dark-skinned human beings. People from the Christian community often have misinformed perceptions of national and religious history that distort and corrupt the way they practice religion. Cough, cough. White Jesus would be one of the results of that. Unfortunately, in a democracy, their distorted and corrupted notion or idea of history can distort and corrupt the secular public world. So not only do they believe that Jesus was white, but they believe in the U.S. that the country's constitution is white and Christian, when it's not. That the institutions that we have are supposed to be Christian. They're not. That the world we're supposed to be living in should be segregated. It should not be. Okay, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed and learned something, even one thing. Please inscrever, subscribe, inscrevi, leave a comment, a like or a dislike, and stay tuned for more episodes from the English Language Learning Podcast.